Hello students. In last class we started the spectroscopic technique and its applications. Today we will discuss about UV spectroscopy. UV spectroscopy. UV spectroscopy is a type of absorption spectroscopy. Absorption spectroscopy means it will absorb the light of a particular spectrum and then we will get the result. So it is known as absorption spectroscopy. And as it is UV spectroscopy, so obviously the molecule will be able to absorb the light in the ultraviolet region. Ultraviolet region, that means 200 to 400 nanometer. When the molecule absorbs such light, there are some electrons in the molecule. Those electrons will absorb the ultraviolet radiation and then the energy of electrons will be increased. When the energy of electron will be increased, the electron will go from a lower energy level to a higher energy level. As we have already discussed in molecular orbital theory, and you all know that the bonding molecular orbitals are having lower energy and anti-bonding molecular orbital are having higher energy. So bonding molecular orbitals are known as ground states and anti-bonding molecular orbitals are known as excited state. So after absorbing the UV radiation, the electron goes from ground state to the excited state. Here you can see that different levels are given, and sigma is having lowest energy and sigma anti-bonding is having highest energy. Then pi, then non-bonding, and then pi anti-bonding. So obviously if you observe carefully, you will find that the energy required to transfer from n to pi anti-bonding molecular orbital is lowest. After that, n to sigma anti-bonding molecular orbital. The electron which is present in non-bonding orbital can go in both anti-bonding molecular orbital, pi and sigma anti-bonding molecular orbital. After that, the energy which is required for transfer to electron from pi bonding molecular orbital to pi anti-bonding molecular orbital is having different energy. So obviously with the help of this diagram, we can detect that for which transition more energy is required, more energy or low wavelength. So here the pattern is sigma to sigma anti-bonding molecular orbital, then n to sigma anti-bonding molecular orbital, then pi to pi anti-bonding molecular orbital, then n to pi anti-bonding molecular orbital. Obviously, the transfer from sigma to sigma anti-bonding molecular orbital requires more energy, and this much energy is not available in the UV range. So all the molecules which are having only single bonds will not give any result in the UV spectroscopy. But all the molecules which are having either double bond or non-bonding electron will fall into this region and it will give result in the UV spectroscopy. So by the absorption of ultraviolet light by a chemical species, it will produce a distinct spectrum. Spectrum is type of a graph in which different peaks are given. The peaks represents the value of wavelength at which the compound is able to absorb the light, and then by absorbing that amount of light, it will excite from a lower energy level to a higher energy level, from ground state to excited state. So with the help of UV spectroscopy, we can differentiate between different type of compound. We can know that the compound is having double bond or single bond or non-bonding electrons, because each type of molecule will show a different pattern in the spectrum. Instrumentation. The instrument which is used to detect the behavior of a molecule to absorb a visible light or UV light is known as UV visible spectrophotometer. Usually the spectrophotometer is having a facility for both type of lights, visible light and UV light. There are two type of instrument which are used for detection of UV visible light absorbance, are known as single beam instrument and double beam instrument. The first one is single beam and the second one is double beam. So first we will discuss the single beam instrument. Single beam instrument is quite cheaper instrument, and it is having two light sources. The first one is UV light source and the visible light source. A mirror is there to select the light source, whether it require UV light or visible light, under which type of light we want to take our observation. Then the light goes through the monochromator. After passing through the monochromator select a particular wavelength, and then this particular wavelength light falls on the reference cell. The reference cell is used to put the reference material. So what is the difference between reference material and sample material? For example, I am having a sample and I am preparing its solution in the alcohol. So obviously the UV light is absorbed by alcohol too, but we want to detect only the behavior of sample. So what we do, first we will detect the absorbance for the reference. Like first we put the reference alcohol in the reference cell, then the monochromatic light pass through the reference and it will goes to the detector. Detector will observe that how much amount of light is absorbed by the reference. Then the instrument is set at 0 or the value is taken as I0. Then the same process is repeated for the sample, and sample will be put on the sample cell. Then again the radiation after passing through the sample goes to the detector and it will give the result. So in case of a single beam instrument, we have to run the instrument twice. First time for reference and second time for sample. Whereas in case of double beam instrument, the basic things are same, like the UV source, visible light source, the mirror and the monochromator. But after the monochromator, it is again having mirrors to separate the light into two parts. The same monochromatic light goes through two different paths. One path goes from the reference cell and the second beam goes through the sample cell. Again these two fall on the mirror and goes to a common detector. This is the common detector. These are the mirrors. Clear? So from the monochromator, the monochromatic light comes up. Then these two follow two different paths. One beam goes through the reference cell, another beam goes through the sample cell. Again those light beams after passing through the reference and sample goes to the mirror, and then again the detector observes the difference between these two directly. So this is quite more automatic, and only in one run we will get the result. So this is the difference between two instruments, the single beam instrument and the double beam instrument. Beer-Lambert's law. Beer-Lambert's law gives the relation between the concentration of solute in a solvent and the path length which is travelled by the radiation. Usually the experimental measurements are in terms of transmittance. Transmittance is equals to I upon I naught. Here I is the light intensity after passing through a sample. After passing through a sample, that means the sample which is active ingredient and it is filled in a cuvette. Here this one is a photograph of cuvette. Cuvette is made up of quartz or glass, and in UV spectrophotometer the sample is placed in this cuvette. So I is the light intensity after passing through this cuvette which contain the sample, and I0 is the initial light intensity. That means before passing through this sample, what was the intensity of the light. So obviously there is some difference between the I0, which is original intensity of light, and I, which is the intensity of light after passing through the sample, because sample will absorb some intensity. So transmittance is equals to I upon I0. Then A, which is absorbance, absorbance is equals to minus log T, or we can write minus log I upon I0. Here in this diagram, absorbance of light by a sample is shown. Like here I0 is the initial intensity. Obviously the initial intensity is slightly more as compared to the I. Then this container is having sample and the light is passing through the sample. This length of path is known as path length. In modern absorption instrument, usually display the data as either in terms of transmittance or in terms of absorbance. In case of Beer-Lambert's law, which was given by the Beers and Lamberts, they tells that there is a linear relationship between the absorbance and the concentration, molar absorption coefficient and optical coefficient of a solution. A is equals to epsilon Cl, where epsilon is molar absorption coefficient, C is concentration, L is optical path length in centimeter, concentration in terms of molarity. So absorbance is directly proportional to concentration of the solution and path length. More is path length, less will be the transmittance and more will be the absorbance. So if a sample is placed in a cuvette which is having which is slightly broader, then what happened? The sample will absorb more radiation. If the sample is having more concentration, obviously if more concentration, then number of molecules are more in number. So they will absorb more amount of light and less amount of light will be transmitted. So this is the Beer-Lambert's law. That is, there is a linear relationship between the absorbance, concentration and length. Deviation from Beer-Lambert's law. Beer-Lambert's law shows the linearity between the absorbance and concentration and path length. But after certain concentration or due to some instrumental region, there is some deviation occurs from the Beer-Lambert's law. Here in this graph, it is a graph between the concentration and absorbance. On y-axis absorbance and on x-axis concentration. So obviously as absorbance is directly proportional to concentration, so a linear line is formed. That means as concentration increases, the absorbance also increases. But after certain concentration, there is some deviation. If this deviation shows a lower absorbance, then deviation is known as negative deviation. If it is on more absorbance side, then it is known as positive deviation. So there are two types of deviation, either negative deviation or positive deviation. There are lots of reasons of these deviation, like deviation in absorptivity coefficient at high concentration due to electrostatic interaction between molecules in close proximity. That means if the concentration is very high, the solution does not obey the Beer-Lambert's law. Why? Because the molecules get aggregated and due to which some light can pass through easily. Then scattering of light due to particulate in the sample. If the sample is having some other particulate matter. Then there are two types. One is sample, another some particulate matter which are not dissolved in the solvent. So obviously those particulate matters are suspended, and these particulate matters reflect the light or scatter the light, due to which the solution does not obey the Beer-Lambert's law. Fluorescence or phosphorescence of the sample. If the sample is having properties of fluorescence and phosphorescence, then it may add some intensity to the light. Next is change in refractive index at high analyte concentration. When the concentration of solute increases, obviously the refractive index of the solution changes. Like water is having different refractive index and sugar solution is having different refractive index. So obviously at high analyte concentration, due to change in refractive index, that solution does not obey the Beer-Lambert's law. Shift in chemical equilibria as a function of concentration. Chemical equilibria, that means like if some solution is there, like solution of acetic acid, so some acetic acid is in associated form and some acetic acid is dissociated form, and there is an equilibrium between the associated and dissociated acetic acid. If the equilibrium shifts, then obviously the amount of associated and dissociated acetic acid may vary, due to which the solution slightly deviate from the Beer-Lambert's law. Next is non-monochromatic radiation. Deviation can be minimized by using relatively flat part of the absorption spectrum, such as the maximum of the absorption band. That means this one is the instrumental factor. There are lots of instrumental factors also, like if the monochromatic radiation is not perfect, in that case also the instrument shows a deviation from the Beer-Lambert's law. So basically, if we are working at very low concentration, it will be definitely follow the Beer-Lambert's law, and it will make easier for us to take observations and results. But if we are working with concentrated solution, we feel much deviation from the Beer-Lambert's law. Chromophore and oxochromes. Chromophores and oxochromes are basically functional groups, which due to presence of these functional groups, the radiation which is absorbed by a molecule is changed. That means the lambda value is changed if these groups are present, and if these groups are not present, the result will be different. So first we will discuss the chromophore. The part of a molecule responsible for imparting color are called as chromophores. So chromophores are those groups which impart a color, or you can say that due to presence of these chromophores, the molecule will be able to absorb a particular wavelength radiation. So here the examples are given like NO2, N double bond O, C double bond O, C double bond N, C triple bond N, C double bond C, C double bond S, etc. All these are having double bonds or a group which is having an atom which is having lone pair electrons. So all these are able to absorb the UV radiation, and the electrons will be transferred from the ground state to the excited state. So these are the groups. Due to presence of these groups, the molecule is able to absorb UV radiation and it will show in the spectrum. Then oxochromes. Oxochromes are the functional group attached to chromophore which modifies the ability of chromophore to absorb the light. That means these chromophores are itself not able to absorb the light, absorb the UV radiation. But if these are present along with the chromophores, these groups enhances the ability of chromophore to absorb the light. That means due to presence of these oxochromes, the value of lambda will be changed. For example, benzene that does not display color, as it does not have a chromophore. So benzene, plain benzene is not having any chromophore, so it will not display the color. But nitrobenzene is of yellow color. Nitrobenzene showing yellow color because nitro group is present here. The nitro group is acting as a chromophore. This nitro group is chromophore. So obviously due to presence of this nitro group, the nitrobenzene is having yellow color. And if we are talking about the para-hydroxy nitrobenzene, so para-hydroxy nitrobenzene is having this oxochrome along with the chromophore. So this oxochrome will enhance the property of the chromophore, and the para-hydroxy nitrobenzene is of dark yellow color. So basically chromophore is color imparting group, whereas oxochrome is color enhancing group. There are different type of shifts in the spectrum. These shifts shows that either the spectra curve in the spectra will be shifted from its original position due to presence of different factors such as different type of solvents, acidic or alkaline condition, or some different functional group is present. So if some different factors are there, the curve is shifted from its original position to some other position. That is known as shift. So there are two types of shift. The first one is absorption shift and the second one is intensity shift. First we will discuss the absorption shift. Here a graph is given. This graph is known as spectrum. This green line shows a peak, this green line, and here you can see that there are two type of shifts. Either this curve may be moved towards the right or it may be moved towards the left. On right side the longer wavelength, on left side the shorter wavelength. So if this peak is shifted towards the longer wavelength due to presence of any factor, it is known as bathochromic shift. Bathochromic shift is also known as the red shift because the red color is on the longer wavelength side. Similarly, if this peak is shifted towards the left, that means towards the lower wavelength, this shift is known as hyposochromic shift. Hyposochromic shift is also known as blue shift because blue color is on the shorter wavelength side. So these are the two absorption shifts. In detail, the effect, this red shift, the effect is due to presence of an oxochrome. So if oxochrome is present, this type of red shift may occur, or by the change of solvent, or if the solvent is changed, then this type of shift can occur. That means the bathochromic shift is due to two reasons. The first one is either presence of oxochrome or change in the solvent. Like here example is given. In alkaline medium, para-nitrophenol shows the red shift because negatively charged oxygen delocalize more effectively than unshared pair of the electron. So here in alkaline medium you can see that only oxygen is there, and in other medium OH is there. Oxygen is more able to delocalize the electrons, pi electrons. So obviously this shows absorption at lambda max 265, whereas if OH is present, the lambda max will be 255. So due to presence of alkaline medium, the OH is converted into O and a red shift takes place. In second type, the blue shift, the effect is due to presence of an group causes removal of conjugation or by change of the solvent. Here also there are two factors. The first one is removal of conjugation. Conjugation means alternate double bond. So if a conjugation is removed, or second if the solvent is changed. Here example is given like aniline shows a blue shift in acidic medium. Aniline is having lambda max at 280. But in case of acidic medium, it shows lambda max 265. This is because of the removal of conjugation. How conjugation? Because here also 3 double bond and in this case also 3 double bond. But as this nitrogen is having lone pair and that lone pair is in conjugation with the double bonds. But in acidic medium, this does not have that lone pair and so the conjugation is removed. So it shows a lambda max slightly lower. Here a blue shift takes place. Next is intensity shift. Intensity shift means the height of peak may be increased or decreased. Amount of absorbance. This intensity shift is also of two types, hypochromic shift and hyperchromic shift. Whether it is increasing or it is decreasing. So hyperchromic shift is when the absorption intensity increases. If it is increases, it is known as hyperchromic shift. If oxochrome introduces to the compound, the intensity of absorption increases. This happened due to introduction of oxochrome in a molecule. Like here, example of pyridine is given. The pyridine is having intensity of 2750. But when a CH3 group, oxochrome, is attached to the pyridine, the intensity is increased to 3560. So this type of shift is due to the presence of oxochrome and this is known as hyperchromic shift. Second is hypochromic shift. Hypochromic shift, that means the decrease in intensity. If the intensity is decreased, means the peak is slightly goes down. That is known as hypochromic shift. When absorption intensity of compound decreases. Here the examples are given, naphthalene and 2-methyl naphthalene. Again, in case of naphthalene, the absorption intensity is 19000, whereas in case of 2-methyl naphthalene, the absorbance intensity is 10250. So this is decreased from 19,000 to 10,250. So this is hypochromic shift. Applications of UV spectroscopy. There are lots of applications of UV spectroscopy. The first application is detection of impurities. This application is very useful in pharmaceutical industries because any type of impurities in active drug is totally unavoidable. So with the help of UV spectrophotometer, we can easily detect the impurities, as the pure compound will give a certain spectrum only. But if there is some different spectrums occur along with the spectrum of the active compound, that shows there is some impurities. So additional peak, any type of additional peak, if it is present, then there is some impurity is present in the active compound. Second application is structure elucidation of organic compound. It is a qualitative analysis. So we can elucidate different structures. Obviously, totally elucidation of structure is not possible alone with the UV spectroscopy. It requires some different type of spectroscopy also. But the presence of unsaturation, presence of heteroatoms, especially in case of aromatic compounds and conjugated olefins, we can detect these type of qualities of a molecule. Next application is quantitative determination of the compound. Quantitative, that means whether the concentration of compound is increased or decreased. So we can compare different concentration of compound in a solvent with the help of UV spectroscopy. Next is detection of isomers. If there are two isomers, obviously they will show different peaks. the peak may be shifted from left or from right, or maybe they have different intensity. So we can easily differentiate between the two isomers, that if whether a sample is having only one isomer, then we will get only one peak. If there are two isomers present in a mixture, we will get two different peaks which are near or adjacent peaks. So with the help of UV spectrophotometer, we can detect the presence of isomers. Next is determination of molecular weight using Beer's law. With the help of Beer's law, we can detect the molecular weight. The Beer's law is a different law which we will discuss later. This is all for today. Thank you for listening carefully. In next class, we will discuss about the IR spectroscopy.